Hello everyone on YouTube. Please take a moment and click the thumbs up button below this video. Leaving a like lets us know you enjoyed this episode. Also hit the subscribe link as we release videos throughout the week, not just from the voices you hear on the podcast, but from other members of the FTW community. For more information on how to get involved in the future, you can head on over to ftwpodcast.com. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Fans Talk Wrestling Podcast. FTW is a weekly WWE and TNA discussion where fans talk the wrestling world in all of its laughable glory. This is episode 236, recorded live on October 14th, 2014 on FTWLive.com. Tonight, we'll be talking about the TNA Bound for Glory and decide whether or not it was a great pay-per-view for TNA and its fans. Plus, we'll talk about the potential of not having another World Heavyweight Championship title defense in WWE until 2015. With us tonight is Nick. Say hello, Nick.
Hi, guys.
And, of course, everybody in the live chat. My name is Garvin, and I'll be moderating tonight's conversation. If you're listening live, say hi. Leave your thoughts in the comments here on FTWLive.com. If you're on Twitter, you can use the hashtag FTWLive. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a like. Now, let's talk about the week that was in wrestling. We're going to start it off with the good part of wrestling, the one that I think, Nick, you and I were both very pleased with, and that was TNA and Bound for Glory. Bound for Glory took place in Tokyo this weekend on Sunday. So let's just start off the conversation with what worked. What, in your mind, made this pay-per-view worth watching?
I think first and foremost it is just the wrestling. Hands down, this is some of the best wrestling that we've seen from a TNA product all year, I think. And that's down to the talent, both TNA and Wrestle One. They all worked their asses off. They did their best to put on a great show, I feel. And I think the novelty of it all was also a contributing factor, just due to the fact that it was in a different location, different country, and they were working for a different kind of audience, one that is receptive to the product, is paying attention to the product, wants to get involved in the product, and not just an audience that is half concerned with getting themselves over, and maybe they might pay attention to what's going on in the ring too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Robert in the live chat saying, good-ass wrestling, period. Enough said. I think for the most part, we both agree with that. We liked pretty much every match. There was not a bad match. And to see a crowd that was just so receptive and overly non-douchey was a nice change of speed. You didn't have the fans booing anything that was like what they thought was quote unquote boring, or there was no chance for the announcers. There was none of that. It was all really receptive, really positive stuff, and it totally gave us a different feel for this wrestling event. Nick, as far as matches go, what would you say was the match of the night for you?
It's honestly a really tough call. I've been thinking about it ever since the show happened, and I still don't have a clear-cut answer. The obvious answer, I think, would be the X Division title match. Samoa Joe is a very known quantity, and to a little lesser degree, Low-Ki is as well. Obviously, there was a long period of time where he wasn't in the company. He only recently came back, but still, if you've watched a product for a while, you know who he is and what he does. The only unknown factor was Kaz Hayashi, and that's if you don't watch Wrestle One. But even so, with 2 out of 3 wrestlers being known quantities, they still put on a match that we haven't seen from them in a long time. The stuff we did see seemed to have a little bit of extra oomph to it, like almost like they cared a little bit more. And I think going back to the audience again, it's obvious the audience was very hot for Joe, for Low-Ki, for Kaz to some degree or another, Kaz was playing a little bit of a heel in that match, but the crowd was obviously very into the match, and the wrestlers responded to that. The other contender I have personally was the opening match, Manic versus Minoru Tanaka, and that's that's mainly due to the fact that I've only recently really started paying attention to Japanese wrestling, uh, mainly New Japan, but basically if I can get an eyeball on it, I'll give it a shot and watch it. And this was just out of all the matches, I think this was the closest to a traditional Japanese wrestling match you would see today. A whole lot of emphasis on fighting spirit as opposed to what quote unquote makes sense, at least to an American audience. Like you had Tanaka kicking out of what would traditionally be used as finishers here, the Brain Buster, Manic's double underhook finish. Each time Tanaka's kicked out of that, and we'll get to the results in a minute, but to me, that's such a different way of wrestling than what I'm used to, and it's incredibly interesting to me.
Yeah,
So yeah,
and
between those two, it's definitely between those two for my favorite.
yeah, and not only that Nick, like you're saying, it was just like a different style. He was kicking out of what could be considered finishes, and what made that match even more special for me was that was your opener. You know that
Hmm.
that was your introduction to what this event was going to be all about.
Yeah, absolutely, and it definitely set the tone, I think.
All right, so for me, my favorite match of the night, definitely the X Division. I love Low Key. I love his style, and I think it meshed so well with Kaz, and obviously his work with Samoa Joe is by far some of my favorite matches in TNA. And luckily for me, it's all been his recent stuff. Like the recent stuff between him and Joe has been phenomenal. So this was great. It was a 10-minute match. It didn't feel like 10 minutes. It felt like it should have gone on for a lot longer, but I was very, very pleased with it. My second match was definitely Manic versus Tanaka. I thought it was a great way to kick off the event. Those guys put in a lot of good work. And what made this match even more special for me, Manic. It is rare that we see Manic in like a one-on-one match, let alone a one-on-one match that went 10 minutes. That was awesome.
Yeah, I can't agree more.
All right, so that's we basically talked about what worked. I'm going through the rest of the card right now in my head just to see anything else that popped out. I thought MVP versus Sakamoto was a good match as well. It was kind of odd in the sense that for months we've been hating MVP. We've been trained to boo MVP and not respect anything that he says or does since he's been in TNA. And this presentation was the exact opposite of that. He had that heartfelt, very face respectable and powerful promo before his match, and then just the idea that most of these matches were the same feel as far as you have a TNA heel out there, but the Japanese crowd was so into the TNA guys that it got the flip effect, and even Tenay and Taz would talk about that as far as while yes. We normally boo MVP. We have to cheer him because he's a TNA guy, and we are TNA.
Yeah, that was definitely a very, very good match. Both MVP and Sakamoto it exceeded my personal expectations for them. And you're absolutely right. It 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 is a little jarring to see that switch. Uh, MVP just being the unrepentant heel for months now in TNA. Yet when it comes to Japan, he is prototypical babyface almost. And I think that TNA did a good job of turning into the wind on that one because MVP's been a hit in Japan basically ever since he went there. Uh, he was New Japan's first ever Intercontinental Champion, and that's a much bigger deal in New Japan than it would be in the WWE. Uh, they actually do treat it as a prestigious title. So MVP is obviously going to get a loud pop, a loud face pop, and to try and have him quash that and still carry on the heel persona, I think that would have presented a very confusing situation for the audience, especially since Sakamoto turned out to be just a asshole clownish type heel. So yeah, that completely worked in my opinion.
Another good match, I thought, Ethan Carter versus Hama. So the foremost sumo wrestler. On paper, I was not looking forward to this match. I predicted Carter would lose just based on the size difference and how well respected and loved Hama is in Japan. So, but overall, despite the sort of awkwardness and the playfulness of this match, I really felt Ethan Carter pulled his own and really showed that he can make pretty much any match feel important.
Yeah, it was certainly a comedy match first and foremost, or at least that was the effect. You had Hama doing the typical fat man gimmicks that you would see in the WWE from Rikishi or somebody of that ilk. But yeah, like you mentioned, Hama is well loved by the fans, and I think EC3 played to that very well. I don't know what it is or why he was never seemingly able to do this in the WWE, but he almost has an innate understanding of what makes a crowd tick and what buttons to push in order to get the most heelish reaction out of any crowd. And now we know of any nationality. EC3 more and more is building himself as a top guy, and I can't wait until he's in the world title picture because that will just be a success story that TNA can crow about from the rooftops.
Yeah, as far as why we didn't know about what this guy could do before, limited window. He was given a limited window of opportunity, and that's what happens. Them's the breaks, I guess. But overall, he has shined. And we're going to talk a bit more in depth about EC3 a little bit later on in the conversation. But yeah, I thought this match on paper was going to be bad. It was going to be, obviously a comedy match. But to me, the way EC3 worked, it just felt important and it felt like a quality match. So, all right. So yeah, overall, a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff happened at Bound for Glory. It's being talked about in the live chat as far as, no one really went into BFG, including me, really looking forward to it because there was a lot of unknowns and, a lot of low expectations because of that. And I think overall we can both agree that it exceeded expectations. It was a good pay-per-view and very good wrestling matches throughout. And overall, that's what's being talked about in the live chat. Again, we set expectations low, and we're very, very, very happy with the outcome. However, there is some things we do need to talk about as far as what didn't work, what made this a bad pay-per-view for TNA. And let me start off with this, Nick. Blue in the live chat was saying, while we all agree that a lot of these wrestling matches were good, and overall we were very pleased with the type of matches that were put on by the Wrestle One guys, he's not sure how TNA benefits from those non-TNA guys having good matches.
Yeah, that is a valid concern. I think that's offset some by the fact that only one match didn't have TNA talent in it, and that was that tag match. Uh, I again, I think it's offset by the fact that you do have TNA talent in the rest of the matches. Manic versus Tanaka, the X Division title match, MVP versus Sakamoto. I think again, that's a very valid concern. It's just I don't think it's quite as bad as you might think on the surface.
Yeah, overall, I think I'm in agreement with you. I mean, Blue, you're right. It doesn't necessarily benefit TNA for the Wrestle One guys to be doing well, depending though on what happens next. There's been a lot of rumors that this partnership between Wrestle One and TNA is going to continue through 2015. So, while initially it doesn't look very beneficial, if these guys are going to make more appearances say after the beginning of the year, it's nice to have that kind of introduction to the TNA fans. Um, Lou in the live chat is questioning whether or not TNA dropped the ball by not promoting it more, and this is something that we've talked about for for months. Ever since it was announced, Bound for Glory was going to happen. Especially with Bound for Glory going to be in Tokyo. There was pretty much little to no promotion up until this last week, where it seemed like they were really bringing it up on TV. So do you think that the event could have been better, or at least received better, if it was promoted more?
Under the circumstances, I don't know that it could have been better promoted. And that's largely due to the circumstances that TNA finds itself in. The uncertain future, at least as far as we're concerned, of whether TNA will have a TV channel going forward in 2015. From all accounts, Bound for Glory changed so much from, I'll say, from Slammiversary onward as to what it was going to be. It seemed like the location was set, Team 3D was going to be inducted, and for the longest time, those were the only concrete things we knew about. I think I would assume that the original plan was to have a world title match. I would assume that the original plan was to have as much of TNA's top talent involved as possible. Jeff Hardy, for instance, there was a lot of uncertainty as to whether he could make it or not. Of course, he has those drug charges still on his record, but there was a lot of rumor and speculation that maybe that wouldn't keep him out of Japan. And again, the whole deal going on with Spike just screwed them massively as far as what they could do with the show. I don't know if TNA was going to handle most of the production costs on their end in the beginning, but it wound up that Wrestle One was basically producing the show for them, and TNA was supplying the talent, essentially. So, with those sort of always changing circumstances, yeah, the show obviously would have benefited from better promotion, but I don't necessarily know that that better promotion would have been possible.
Yeah, it definitely would have gotten more people interested in it, but as far as making the event better or the event feel more important, I don't think so, because of the circumstances. Like, is it Eddie Edwards that has his leg broken or something like
Davey
that?
Richards broke
Davey
his leg.
Richards, okay.
Yeah.
So Davey Richards was hurt, and so there was no way for him to make that trip, which sucks, obviously, especially after what we saw in Impact this week. It would have been amazing to see him and the Wolves in general at that event. The same thing with, would have been cool to see Bobby Roode versus Bobby Lashley for the title in Tokyo, yeah. But at the same time, as obviously we're on Tuesday now. We're looking back at the event because of the event that we got. I don't think more promotion would have made a difference. I think, for us who were going to tune in no matter what, I think we walked away mostly happy, and and the wrestling itself, like Robert is saying in the live chat, the wrestling was great. This was a good wrestling event. So I think, yeah, promotion would have made probably a little bit more people watch. It would make it feel a little bit more important. But as an event, it was a good event. It was a good event.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you and I, we sat down with David over at the Talk TNA podcast, talktnapodcast.com. If you check out his site, there's a Bound for Glory special where we both talked about an hour and a half on Bound for Glory. So if you want a little bit more of this type of conversation, check that out for sure. But in that conversation and in today, you and I pretty much did the same thing where we raved, for the most part, about the first half of the event, but we stayed pretty quiet about the rest of the event. So let's go into this now. I mean, as far as what made this a bad pay-per-view for me, was the Wrestle One only match. I think that's when I stopped. I think that's when my momentum as a fan kind of stopped, because here's four guys, while they did wrestle very well, I had no idea who any of them were. I didn't understand the characters. Pantera yelling what Taz said was obscenities, but then you said it was just a phrase that meant idiot a few times, kind of threw me off. I don't know. That match is when I stopped caring as much about this pay-per-view, and as a fan watching, it seemed like TNA stopped caring as much after this match as well. Do you agree with that point of view?
Yes and no. Me personally, I didn't become less invested during the second half, but the momentum definitely seemed to stall. Not necessarily with the Wrestle One tag match, but with the Hardcore Legends match, Team 3D versus Tommy Dreamer and Abyss. I think that's where the things really hit a low point in terms of the event. I can definitely see where you're coming from with not knowing who the guys are, not knowing their characters or whatnot. Me personally, I don't mind that as much. Again, I've recently gotten more into Japanese wrestling, and I think I'm in a stage where I'm a lot more accepting of what I don't know, I guess. Maybe once I get used to it and start learning more about it, maybe I'll start leaning more the other way. But yeah, I tended to enjoy this match. I liked how over the top Jiro was with the hair flips and adjusting the jacket and all that. I liked Pantera's antics. When you bring up Baka, Japanese is a language where your tone matters a lot. I've heard a lot of interpretations for the word Baka. It ranges from just stupid to idiot to what Taz mentioned as obscenities. So
it was just so loud.
Yeah, he just kept yelling that again and again. But yeah, again, I enjoyed that tag match. It was when you got to Team 3D and Dreamer and Abyss is where things hit a low point for me. I think they did a good job of building back up. But yeah, again, yes and no on the second half being worse than the first half. If only because the first half set such a high bar.
Yeah, it definitely felt like the first half was really built to be fast-paced and solid, overall. Because after that tag match, we got Team 3 versus Tommy Dreamer and Abyss, and that was slow and more of like the hardcore style, so not really technical, obviously not really fast-paced, so a different type of match. Then we got Havoc and Velvet Sky, which was a probably, and I mean this as positive as possible, this was probably the best match I've ever seen from Velvet Sky. Take that for what you will.
Yeah, it was almost certainly the best received match Velvet
Yeah,
Sky's ever had.
that too. That too. And then the main event, which was what I was hoping for the main event to be. That seemed to be how the story was being told. Tajiri Great Muta versus James Storm Great Sonata. That match really felt slow paced as well, and I think it's just a matter of you just have a few different styles here. You've got Great Muta and Tajiri who are comparatively slow compared to Sonata, and then you've got James Storm, who's never really fit that type of wrestling style either. So I don't know. To me, those three matches back to back to back felt awkwardly booked. I would have much rather had the X Division Championship near the end, uh, or even that Wrestle One tag match somewhere to fill the gap. But it just seemed like everything slowed down.
Yeah, honestly, I would have expected the tag match to lead off because that seems, from what I've gathered, that seems to be a trend in Japanese wrestling where you kick off with the young boys or the rookies, and then you lead up to the more established characters. And they kind of sort of took that build with Muta and Tajiri capping things off. But yeah, I personally probably would have booked the order a little differently, but yeah, it is what it is.
Okay. The only other negative I want to bring up about Bound for Glory is the fact that, to me, what kind of hurt it was just the fact that there was no major storyline consistency. So you have MVP basically playing up as a face when we know he's not. You have you have the whole really weird relationship between Tommy Dreamer and the Dudleys. Like here they are, best friends. They played up this the whole Hall of Fame presentation where they're best friends, they're buddy buddy, and then they have this match on Sunday, and it just felt like really out of place, especially because the promo before that was so positive about how much they're friends and how important they've been to each other's careers. So it just kind of felt, um, it just felt off. It felt non-realistic.
Yeah, the I guess the lack of storyline probably would throw some people. The only storylines that really seemed to continue from anywhere were EC3 and then James Storm's Revolution. That whole bit. I didn't take issue with Dreamer in 3D. I read that more as Dreamer's attitude being, hey, I respect you. When we get in that ring, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. Friendship kind of leaves the equation once you step between the ropes is how I took it.
Sure.
And Abyss, he just doesn't give a shit. So Dreamer can't really abandon his partner on that score. So
Yeah, I don't know. It was just weird because if you look at how Tommy Dreamer has been used on TV for the last month or two, it this match didn't make sense. But overall, let's give this pay-per-view a general score. Do you think this pay-per-view was good?
yes, absolutely. It's probably my favorite pay per view of the year, personally.
Okay. I also thought it was a good pay-per-view. Whether or not it helps TNA, I'm not sure. But I think overall, as a wrestling fan, as a TNA fan, it was nice to see. It was nice to see this event, and hopefully it means something moving forward. Hopefully this is just the beginning of this relationship that we've been hearing rumors about. This is the beginning of that, and hopefully it develops into a really cool relationship.
Absolutely, I cannot agree more.
All right, and let's do our pay-per-view picks. Last week we did pick this on FTW235. Let's start from the bottom. I only had 2 correct picks. uh, that is disappointing, but it is what it is. Nick, you had 5 correct picks, and Joe, who, if you haven't heard last week's episode, if you don't want to listen to the whole thing yet, just go back and listen to him introduce this card. Him reading all the Japanese names in the card. Probably the best moment of the year for us. Hilarious. But Joe got 6 picks. So that takes us to Joe with 40 correct picks. I've got 48, and Nick, now you are on top with 52 picks.
Yes, sir.
Dang. All right. This week on Impact, we talked about whether or not anything could have topped the 3-way tag ladder match that we got a few weeks ago between the Wolves, the Hardys, and 3D. This week, though, we got a full Metal Mayhem match for the titles. This was the final match of the series. Obviously, the Wolves won. Do you think this outdid the rest of the series as far as match quality goes?
I believe it did. I think there was a steady build in quality from the beginning to the end, and it also makes sense logically. You go from regular match to tables, then ladders, and then you have the whole shebang plus a kitchen sink. All in all, I think it was a very nice progression, both in terms of quality and in storyline. And I was very happy with all the matches. I think all the teams involved did excellent work, and it's a little surprising to say for me, given who's involved, specifically the Hardys. They have, well, I won't say they haven't, but on national TV, they haven't been together in a long time. They got their own wrestling fed, Omega, but yeah, we haven't seen them together in a long, long time. We've seen them as singles wrestlers. So to have them come back and work together the way they did to such a high level of quality was honestly a pleasant surprise for me.
Yeah, especially with everything that has happened with Matt Hardy since he was last in TNA. He was banned from the show from all of the crap that he did off TNA TV. Off TV was just all the drama that surrounded Matt Hardy, and for him to bounce back, everything he did in ROH and how he's rebuilt himself as a credible wrestler again, I think it's been fantastic. It's definitely one of those success stories to see a guy go as low as he did, to come back and be putting on the type of matches he did. I think it's been stellar. I'm very, very proud of the guy for sure. And as far as this match goes, to me, the reason why this match outdid the last match, the ladder match, was just because the titles were on the line. You knew this was the final match. It made the match feel so much more important. And yeah, these guys went all out. Sure, it was kind of spot heavy. There was lots of table spots, lots of it was the power bomb on Davey Richards through the rail. There was a lot of stuff like that almost made like me close my eyes, especially when Hardy went through the upside down table and you saw the legs of the table hit him in the head. Man, got a little crazy, but for the most part, I thought this match really put the Wolves on the map, and not just this match, but this whole series. I've been more and more surprised about what the Wolves have been able to do against these guys as we go from match to match, and then it really, I think, secured them at the top of the wrestling industry. Whether what fed you follow, these guys are the top tag team for me right now.
I completely agree with you. When they came in, they showed that they were a good cohesive tag team in their matches against the Bromans, and I want to say they also faced off against Bremen Magnus at some point for a bit. But those two teams and the teams that TNA had in there at the time, they weren't the established tag teams, the legends of yore, if you will, like Motor City Machine Guns or Beer Money or Team 3D. But then Team 3D reunited, the Hardys came back, and this was really the only way that you could get the Wolves on that level in the general fan's eye. Like prior to that point, you could say, yeah, the Wolves are pretty good, but they've never faced the really good ones, so they're not on that level. But now, you'd have to be almost blind to not see that after the performance that they put on against these legendary tag teams.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, when the Wolves signed with TNA, I did not have high expectations with them. I knew that they were basically going to get a contract in WWE, and WWE, for whatever reason, turned them down. To me, that could have been a number of things, whether it's a bad attitude, which we've heard. We've heard those rumors going around, or maybe it's just their inability to wrestle at that high level. And what they did with this series, and realistically with their entire tenure so far in TNA, they have turned that opinion around for me. I really feel like they are the top tag team right now, and that's WWE and TNA alike. I think these guys are legit, and this series really made them stars, and that's something that you don't really see a lot. You don't see, especially with a team like 3D, who are going to be inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame. Like, at this moment, you would think that they would, any other wrestler that was coming back, whether it's The Rock or Batista, they're trying to get that spotlight. Or in this sense, with 3D getting back together, or the Hardy Boys getting back together, that would be the perfect moment for them to rekindle sparks that they might have had before, and to really show that they belong at the top of the industry. But those two teams didn't. They put the effort into making the Wolves look awesome, and I think that is really epic. That's a story you don't see enough in wrestling.
I completely agree. 3D especially, I love how those two guys, and maybe that comes from them running a wrestling academy or training school, but the lengths that they will go to build other guys, like Team 3D versus Motor City Machine Guns. The Machine Guns became the only team to ever kick out of 3D after 15 years in the business and God knows how many titles. Like you just don't see that. Like you said, with guys like The Rock or Hulk Hogan or Batista, guys that come back for one last hurrah, and it all becomes about them. And then you have what's going on in TNA, where it seems like even with NXT going on, TNA is still outstripping WWE in terms of building new talent that could become the next stars of the industry. And you got it with the Wolves, and you also got it with Ethan Carter. Like both groups being people that the WWE spurned in development. So it's really impressive to see that going on.
Speaking of Ethan Carter, Bound for Glory marked the beginning of his second year in TNA, which is beyond me. I didn't realize we had gone that far with Ethan Carter. So looking back, I remember not being super excited about his potential. Like I could see things we've talked about, Ethan Carter making the jump over to TNA. What could he do? Could he get that opportunity? And if he got that opportunity, what could he do? Those are all questions that we asked when he first started here. And Um, Looking back now and what he has done with his career, do you think he could have asked for a better first year?
No, I don't think anyone could have predicted that he would have had the year that he's had, and especially not if you followed him in the WWE at all. Uh, Derek Bateman was a joke through and through. He was a complete and utter joke. He was just the butt of everything. And then to have him go on to become the nephew of the president of the company, the man to beat Sting on Sting's way out the door, the man to basically legitimately injure Kurt Angle. He's had so much success and he's carried that performance so well. It's If you would have asked anybody a year ago if he would have a year like this, I don't think you could find a single person that would have said yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the only negative I can think is that, you know, which then again could be seen as a positive, is the fact that he hasn't been put into a title shot yet. It seems like all they've concentrated on as far as building EC3 is making him credible in whatever he does. So, he went over on Sting, he went over on Angle, he went over and on everyone. He has won every single singles match that he has had in TNA, and I think this is something we don't see very often in wrestling. It seems like, wrestling fans and the writing staff are one and the same in that they don't have patience to wait for that slow build, and they don't have the patience to let this guy build naturally. And I think that's what they did with EC3, partnering with Dixie, especially when she was that mega heel. I thought, looking back now, was fantastic. At the time, I would have liked to see him, go from Sting to Angle to then, go for the World Heavyweight Championship or go for the X Division Championship or something. But instead, they just kept having him go up against, you know, bigger people, and they kept him away from the title shot. So on one hand, could he have asked for a better first year? Yes, because they could have put him into a title shot. But at the same time, you know, that could be perceived negative, because the thing is that we look at or we hear this connotation every single time. Like anytime there's a quote unquote WWE reject, he's automatically put into a title race or given the title or being put in this really prominent role above anyone else, and they haven't really done that with EC3.
Sure, and I could very well see that being an influencing factor. Uh, Personally, I'm incredibly glad that they did give him a title shot, not just because of where he came from, but because of the fact that before he came to TNA, he'd never really done anything, and there was a lot of character building that had to be done, a lot of legitimizing that he needed to go through. The thing is, I think 9 times out of 10, or hell, 99 times out of 100, this sort of year-long build where he just beats the legends of the industry and doesn't really pursue gold, I don't think it'd work 99 times out of 100. I mean, look at Ryback. His early build was very, very similar to EC3's. You beat nobodies and you go on an undefeated streak for a little while. And, I mean, look where he is now. I mean, right now he's injured or coming back from an injury. I forget which, but he went from beating nobodies to being rocketed up to the top of the card because oh shit, Cena's injured. Who do we put? That guy. Have Cena push that guy, and he tanked. Another guy that you could kind of make an argument for, as far as comparisons go, is ADR. And he was immediately given everything just because of his pedigree behind him, like the grandson of Mil Mascaras and everything he's done down in Mexico. That guy should be able to carry that kind of responsibility, and yet he got title reign after title reign, and it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I'd rather you do that build upon build upon build, especially when his character and his delivery is so good that he can carry that.
Yeah, I mean it's been a slow build that the company has basically given him an opportunity to sell himself, whether it's in the ring or on the mic. They're letting him win over the crowd before they force him onto us, basically. And that's a nice turn, a nice change of how things are usually done. Uh, I believe this. It's being talked about in the live chat. I want to know if you believe this as well. EC3 will be a world heavyweight champion in 2015.
I could definitely see it. I don't know if I want to stake my claim on that definitively, but I could definitely see it.
Okay, we'll go back. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to go back and see how close we were. So all right. One last thing in TNA, it's kind of a transition topic because there's been lots of rumors that TNA guys like a Kurt Angle could be headed to WWE. Um, but what we're going to talk about right now, though, is where Bully Ray, not necessarily where he's going to go, but just the fact that if you haven't heard, sorry, spoilers. They're not really spoilers. It's been out there. Bully Ray's gone. This was his last match in TNA was at Bound for Glory. Same thing for Devon. They are both gone, and it seemed like, and I know, Nick, you read this. I read this as well. We saw some pictures online after Bound for Glory was over. There, Bully Ray took a Bullet Club shirt and basically challenged the Bullet Club, which is an NGPW tag team, and basically said, well, I'm sorry, they're a stable, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But there's a tag team specifically that they were targeting from these reports that are out there. So basically, a lot of speculation that they're going there, or they're going to be signing with Global Force Wrestling because there's a partnership there, or whatever. We're going to have lots of time to talk about that because uh, since GFW isn't going to be holding an event until January, I think we're going to have a little bit more time to speculate and join in that conversation. But right now, I just want to spend a few minutes, Nick, talking about what losing Bully actually means to TNA. Is this like, can TNA recover from losing a guy like Bully Ray?
I believe they can, especially at this stage. If this had been a year ago, or maybe even 6 months, I forget how long Bully was really on top. Um, but if this had been in the latter half of the Aces and Eights deal, or during the run for Bully to try and put Dixie through a table, if this had gone down then, TNA would have been hurt majorly. Just because Bully was top guy for that run of time, but Bully's taken more of a back seat. Um, Ever since he accomplished his goal, he's been more of a supporting character, and with that in mind, it'll still hurt TNA in the short term, just given how dynamic a personality and character Bully is. But just like TNA recovered from AJ Styles leaving, I fully believe that TNA can recover from Bully Ray leaving.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of uproar and a lot of drama when AJ Styles left. A lot of people said that was the end of TNA. TNA made such a mistake letting him go. I never believed that. I for the last couple of years for AJ, I really wasn't into what he was doing until that very last storyline that they were running because it was, blurring that line between reality and kayfabe. So, but with Bully on the other hand, Bully has built so many stars and had so many great matches, and he's been such a focal point for the last 2 years, whether it's Aces and Eights or whether it's his feud with Dixie, which culminated in him putting Dixie through the table. He's been the guy in TNA for so long that losing him is a big thing. But you're right. If this happened months ago, if this happened when he was, still feuding for the World Heavyweight Championship, this would be much bigger. Right now, I think it's okay. The thing is, while I have grown to really enjoy what Bully Ray has done, I'm a huge Bully Ray fan right now, but I'm also aware he's 43, 44. I know he doesn't have that long of a time left. So for him to leave now, I think is okay for the fact that he built so many stars, that he built EC3, that he really seemed to put Austin Aries on the map. He helped make Bobby Roode that credible World Heavyweight Championship contender. He even made Ken Anderson enjoyable again. That's the thing. It's like, while, the company depended on him, and while he was involved in such big things, he has made everyone else around him so much better that if he does leave now, you still have those guys. You still have that credibility, that star power to carry TNA on for the next few years at least.
Absolutely. Again, if he was going out 6 months or a year ago, you didn't have the talent, the depth of talent that you do now. If he left then, you'd have Jeff Hardy and a couple other guys that wouldn't really. It gets stale, but now you do have more depth. You've got Bobby Roode, you've got Austin Aries. You still have Jeff Hardy and those other guys, but you've got more available now. MVP can step into that role. So, yeah, that's why it wouldn't hurt as much now, just because TNA does have other options.
Yeah, and this is also being talked about in the live chat, of course. Lou is saying, it will take some time, but that they will recover. Also, as far as, look at how TNA lost AJ, Kaz, and Daniels, but they always found people to fill those spots. Deuce is saying, I don't see this as a matter of recovery, given all the guys they have to pick up the slack. And that's the thing. That's what makes this different, is that, while Bully is going to leave a void, he has built enough people around him to, especially, you can even look at the tag team title scene now. That is so awesome with the Wolves. If 3D leaves, which they have, obviously, but, without them, the Wolves can now go on and fight all the other guys and be looked at as a great tag team. So, yeah, I think it's a huge loss. I think it hurts TNA. But at the end of the day, because of the work that they did before they left, Bully especially, he has left a legacy that will help TNA moving forward because of it. And that's, I think, enough TNA talk. We've pretty much gone almost a full hour just talking about TNA. A lot of it positive. Feels nice. I like that conversation. But let's flip that. talk a little WWE. WWE Hell in a Cell is going to take place on Sunday, October 26th. We'll be previewing it in full next week on FTW237, which will be recorded live on Tuesday, October 21st. Here is the card, officially. And this is as of an hour or so ago. We have Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins in a Hell in a Cell. We've got John Cena versus Randy Orton in a Hell in a Cell. By the way, Benjamin from the Facebook notes that this is going to be the 16th facing of John Cena and Randy Orton this year. Just throwing it out there. We're also going to see Brie Bella versus Nikki Bella in a loser becomes the personal assistant of the winner. Sheamus versus The Miz for the U.S. Championship, and Rusev versus The Big Show. Likely additions will be Dolph versus Cesaro for the Intercontinental Championship. Probably going to see Usos versus Golden Stardust for the Tag Team Championships. But and then you also gotta wonder what's going on with the Wyatts, if they're going to try to bring them in before Hell in a Cell, since they've been really pushing those video packages as of late. So maybe they'll have something to do with it, maybe they won't. And then everything else is pretty much up in the air. So five matches official, one or two likely. So that might be your full card. We'll know more next week for sure. So Nick, anything on this card have you excited?
I'm looking forward to the Ambrose versus Rollins match. Those two work incredibly well together, so anything that they do is going to be quality, I think. I'm also interested in Brie versus Nikki. I just want to see how they work together, given both their improvements over the last year, and the fact that this is not a Hell in a Cell match, right?
Well, it is not in a Hell in a Cell.
Okay. I guess there's still time to make that stipulation, but even without the gimmick, I think these two will put on a decent match. The stipulation, I don't know if that interests me so much, but it's something. And if nothing else, I think the match itself will be good. Beyond that, Sheamus versus Miz should be entertaining, if only for Damien Mizdow's contributions. As far as the other official matches go, Rusev versus Big Show, I have little to no interest in that. And Cena versus Orton for the 16th time this year alone, and I think they said last week that they've faced each other a little less than 100 times in their career. So 16 out of almost 100 matches in the 15 years they've been in this company. That says a lot about where the WWE is creatively right now.
It also says a lot.
Nothing good.
Yeah, it also says a lot that they don't have a real rivalry because of it.
Yeah,
they just seem to always be thrown together.
Yeah, the WWE treats it as, these two guys have been around for a long, long time. They're our two top guys. Let's watch them go at it again, without any real animosity between the two.
I don't know, man. Excitement for me. Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins. This is the match. This is the only match I'm really looking forward to because of how well the story has been. This is the only story that has been done properly, in my opinion. It feels legit. It feels real. It feels like these guys really hate each other, and it's all because of Dean Ambrose. Really, Ambrose is a great wrestler, a great character. He is our generation's Roddy Piper. I think the guy is amazing, and it wouldn't really matter who he's up against as long as it's not John Cena. I mean, even with John Cena, he did well on Raw this week. I think we can agree with that. He's done well with John Cena, but that type of match would always leave a lot of doubt in your head. Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins. It really doesn't matter what happens in that match, how that match ends. We know it's going to be a great match. And I think that is why I'm looking forward to this pay-per-view, because I want to see what they do next and how Dean will work outside of the normal WWE box to make this match epic. Because he can, and he probably will. Outside of that, yeah, again, I'm not looking forward to any of this. John Cena versus Orton. We've seen it 15 times, 16 times already this year, 17 times if you include this upcoming Raw. Brie and Nikki, I thought was going to be good, and I was looking forward to it, sort of. up until they added this gimmick or this stipulation where the loser becomes the personal assistant. Because usually you look forward to a match not just because of the match, at least for me, but it's not just because of the match, but it's where they're going next with the story. And I don't want to see where they're going next with the story if this is it.
And it certainly doesn't help the fact that Brie pinned Nikki this week, and commentary hyped that up. She finally pinned her sister, and now what?
Yeah. Now, Sheamus versus Miz, and the assumption that we're also going to get Dolph versus Cesaro. I really can't get into either of these matches because I am tired of seeing these two mid-card titles specifically switch out every other month. You know, we saw Cesaro versus Sheamus, which I thought was a quality story and a quality match. And as soon as that was over, they moved Cesaro to the Intercontinental Championship. On the flip side, Miz versus Dolph, I thought the story that they were doing was good, especially with Damien Mizdow. I thought, overall, I was enjoying what they're doing, and then they flipped it. And that's a common occurrence that happens pretty much every few months. Who's ever going for the U.S. Championship, if he doesn't win, he goes for the Intercontinental Championship the next month. And that sucks. That is bad storytelling. That is bad writing. Especially, we look at the U.S. Championship as being third, with Intercontinental Championship being second. So if Cesaro can't beat Sheamus, why is he automatically the number one contender for the Intercontinental Championship? I don't get it. It's bad storytelling. I'm sure the match will be great as far as a wrestling match goes, but they don't have a good enough story to really carry it.
Yeah, and I saw this point made in the G Plus community. Landon G specifically brought it up. Is the fact that Orton faced Ziggler this past week on Raw, and Ziggler was beaten cleanly, and then he was brutalized post-match. For all intents and purposes, this is your top champion in the company right now because Brock's nowhere to be seen, and the rumor is that he won't be back till next year.
Right.
If nothing else, if for no other reason, then your next top champ by default should be treated with a little more care. And the WWE hasn't cared about the mid-card titles for donkey's years, but we're no longer operating under the same circumstances that we were before, where you've got a WWE champion, you've got a World Heavyweight champion. Oh, those other smaller titles, we don't have to push those as hard. Now the World Heavyweight Championship no longer exists. The WWE Heavyweight Champion is nowhere to be found. So if you're going to have gold in the company, it needs to be pushed right now.
Yeah.
And it needs to be handled with care. And the fact that they're just operating as business as usual, we can just job them out to the guys that have been here forever. It's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, and Ricky Spanish in the Facebook group, he wanted us to talk this week about the entire mid-card title situation. And I just looked at Raw specifically. This week on Raw, we saw Dean Ambrose and John Cena defeat both the tag team champions and the number one contenders for the tag team championship in a 10-minute match pretty easily. Okay, we also saw Miz defeat Sheamus. We saw Randy Orton defeat Dolph Ziggler. So 3 matches, 3 of the mid-card titles. Generally look at all 3 of those as mid-card titles, and the champions looked bad every single match. Like the only difference, like the only title that looked halfway decent was AJ, and the fact that she almost, that she single-handedly beat Paige and Alicia Fox in a tag team match. But outside of that, I don't get what WWE is doing. It's not just who they're pushing for those titles, because I think honestly, Sheamus versus Cesaro or Cesaro versus Dolph, that has potential to be really good, and it's going to be a good match. The same thing with Miz Miz versus Dolph or Miz versus Sheamus, you still have a good program there potentially, but it's just their inability to do it. And I don't know how. I don't know how WWE fails at this. I'm sorry, not just that they failed at it, but that they failed at it for so long. Why? How do they not see these titles as important, wins and losses even, you know?
Yeah, the general apathy surrounding it by creative, by the leadership is just, it's a huge mystery, and it really shouldn't be.
Yeah. So, Rick Spanish, you wanted us to talk about the mid-card titles, and overall, it's disappointment. That's the feeling. The feeling is disappointment because they've got good enough players in those spots, and they're mistreating them, and they're not giving them that opportunity. You know, we talked about this when we talked about Ethan Carter. Ethan Carter, and I totally blank on what his name was in WWE now because it doesn't matter. The thing was like he
Yeah.
was given a limited window of opportunity to really show what he could do, and that's exactly what we get in WWE for everyone. And it's a shame. It is a shame. And once they get the reins, you know, off of them and allow them to work on the mic and work the crowd and really perfect their craft in the ring, like Ethan Carter has been given that opportunity in TNA. You know that's what needs to happen, and for some reason WWE won't let it. Whatevs. All right, so you briefly mentioned the fact that Brock Lesnar. Actually, before we get into that, let's do one more note about Hell in a Cell. Hell in a Cell right now, and I think this is the first time I can ever remember there being a pay-per-view poster with a guy, in this case Dean Ambrose, on the poster and potentially in the main event of the same event. I think that's the first time I can remember that ever happening, or at least in the last couple of years. Um, I believe Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins belongs as your Hell in a Cell main event. I think a lot of fans feel that way as well. Jared Perez in the Facebook group, though, thinks that WWE is going to give us what we don't want, which is John Cena versus Randy Orton as your main event. So, Nick, what do you think is going to be the main event?
Sadly, I'm leaning towards Cena versus Orton because when Orton demanded the loser of Cena versus Ambrose, he said that either way, he wanted to face that guy in the main event. And Triple H said, okay, sounds good. And I don't know if they'll change that, but I have a really bad feeling that they won't.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. I'm with the sentiment. I understand where you guys are coming from. Most likely, we will get John Cena versus Randy Orton in the main event, but I I don't get it logically why it would happen. They have put so much effort into making Dean Ambrose the star, and they have put so much effort into telling this great story between Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins that if they didn't put them in the main event as your top story, they're really shooting themselves in the foot. Not just in our perspective, but just in the general grand scheme of things. They are incredibly dumb. Honestly, they're incredibly dumb if they don't do this. If they don't allow Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins to get the spotlight that they've earned and that they've already given them. It seems dumb for them just to pull that out from underneath them. So,
Yep, no argument there.
all right, real quick. Brock Lesnar rumored not to be at Hell in a Cell. It is also rumored that Brock Lesnar will not be at Survivor Series. It's also rumored that Brock Lesnar will not be in any capacity on WWE television until 2015. That's a bad thing, right?
Yeah, it's if they handled it right, I could see it being spun in a positive manner. Um, it's and it could be understandable if the health rumors are have any validity to them. Um, I've been looking for the last little bit for recent rumors about the heart condition, and I haven't been able to find anything recent. But if that has any truth to it, that either the heart condition is real or the diverticulitis is acting up again or what have you, then there's not really anything they can do about that. But and you really can't expect the WWE to strip Lesnar of the title either, not after what they've given him this year. Between beating Cena to take the unified titles and ending the Undertaker streak. It, stripping him of the top title in what is essentially the off season would be incredibly counterproductive. I won't say it invalidates all that, but it would definitely hurt continuity. Um, if he's not here for the rest of 2014, again, I think there are ways they could spin that. You don't really have a big show coming up till Royal Rumble. So Heyman could come out and say it's not worth the champion's time to come out for Survivor Series or TLC. He might deign us all with his presence at Royal Rumble just to see who is dumb enough to actually challenge him. But I think that might be kind of a stretch for people to accept at the same time. So the WWE is not really in a good place right now as far as that goes.
Yeah, I think for me, they can spin it well, and it's also realistic based on how we feel about things, and that is that who would have like who would right now on the roster, who would be a good challenger for Brock Lesnar? I can't think of anyone. As far as how they've been built, how storylines have gone right now. Sure, you could throw guys like Cesaro. I mean, we would all wish that Daniel Bryan was back and could face him, but generally speaking, there isn't that one guy that has been built. The main story that we see is Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose, and that's not for a title shot. That's not for a number one contendership. That's for because they want to fight each other, or at least Dean Ambrose wants his hands on Seth Rollins. So, I think for the most part, they really haven't built a number one contender, and Paul Heyman can use that type of thing, saying, who is here, who deserves that title shot. Brock Lesnar is going to be at Hell in a Cell because there is no championship contender. Brock Lesnar is not going to be at Survivor Series because there is no real championship contender. And doing that, going that route, could actually put WWE in a good spot to really build a number one contender, to really build a challenger that we can believe could, go against Brock Lesnar. Because Cena can't beat him. I can't picture Seth Rollins beating. I really can't picture anyone beating him. But if they build it up that way and make it seem like they are really aggressively trying to find someone to take the title off of Brock Lesnar, I think that would be an epic story. But it's WWE, so who knows?
Yeah, that's definitely the silver lining to this cloud is that the WWE does have an opportunity to build more championship caliber contenders, and hopefully not all of them will get injured in one go. Hopefully they will have an arrow left in the quiver. But yeah, aside from the fact that the WWE can spin this, it's again it's just the WWE reaping what they sow. They didn't build new talent the way they should have, and it's biting them in the ass in a big way.
Okay, well, I think that's pretty much all of the WWE stuff that we have lined up. So let's go ahead and jump into win fail. Nick, your win of the week.
My win of the week, um, Bound for Glory as a whole, but specifically the fact that TNA seems to be building Storm's Revolution as a main event level storyline. The fact that it capped off what TNA has advertised as its biggest event of the year says a lot about what they're willing to do with this. And TNA has shown that they can have really compelling storylines that are nowhere near a title. Um, Storm was a good example of this when he was facing off against Bobby Roode after Roode screwed him for the title. Eventually, it stopped becoming about getting the title back, and it became about what Ambrose versus Rollins is right now: is Storm getting his hands on Roode. And I think this angle has a real potential to get that kind of heat and attention to it, where it doesn't need a title to be interesting. So I'm really glad about that.
Okay. My win of the week is the X Division Championship match. I thought that was just a phenomenal match, and I think overall it really made the pay-per-view for me. While I don't necessarily like everything that happened after that match, I did like that match a whole lot. It I don't know, for some reason that was the best memory this week for me, as far as just how low key Kaz and Samoa Joe worked together. It was just fantastic. So it's definitely my win. From the live chat, we've got Japanese wrestling crowds, EC3 and James Storm. The education Bound for Glory gave us about Japanese wrestling, and yeah, that's another thing that we didn't really touch on. But Taz and Tenay were fantastic. Their stories, them really explaining why the crowd is what they're, you know, acting the way they were, and why it was important, and just all the interpersonal relationships with like Loki and MVP and Sonata and everyone else. It just felt very very important. So probably best commentary uh, event in general all year for sure.
Definitely.
We got wins from Bound for Glory 2014. Dolph Ziggler versus Orton and Ambrose from this week's Raw. Um, yeah, all of Bound for Glory. The show was friggin' awesome, and yeah, that's all I got. That's all I got from the live chat. Seems like everyone was pretty positive on Bound for Glory, which I was as well, and so were you. So good to see. But let's jump into our fails of the week. Nick, your fail of the week.
My fail is the general malaise that seems to be surrounding the WWE right now, and it's incredibly indicative of creative and the fact that they don't seem to have a handle or a direction moving forward. And a lot of that is beyond their control, what with all the injuries. But then you have what's going on with the mid card titles. How we're getting Cena and Orton again for the 16th time this year. The fact that no one else seems to be getting elevated to the main event except for the guys that have already been in there for a year or 2 years. Like, aside from Cena versus Orton, we're getting Ambrose versus Rollins. And on the one hand, that's great because they put on an entertaining product. But on the other hand, they've been there for basically since they debuted as part of the Shield. In one form or another, they've been there. So we're even with the holes in their roster right now, the WWE isn't doing anything that we can see in the short term to build themselves back up and get people interested in what's going on, to try and turn public opinion around. Yeah, you've got NXT going on, but the WWE treats that as almost a separate entity. So, and anything that goes on there probably won't do anything to affect the flagship programming in anything but the long term. So 6 months or a year from now, maybe we'll see something, but right now, that doesn't help anything. So I'm starting to feel the same way about the WWE as I felt when they were just screwing Daniel Bryan over and over and over again. And that got to the point where I just stopped watching because I did not care about what was going on in the company. And I don't like that I'm starting to feel that way again. So I really hope things turn around, but right now, that is a huge fail for me.
Right on. All right, my fail is the inability for wrestling news sites to be both professional and credible. It's a shame that everyone calls themselves insiders but won't put in the actual time or money to be one. We flock to sites like PW Insider and the Wrestling Observer and call them credible sources when at the end of the day, they both have a really low percentage of success. It's a shame that sites like Wrestling News Source, and no offense to our friends who may or may not still be working with them, can make money by just copying and pasting the same stories from these two sites. And just content pulled directly from these guys, not sending anyone to them, not just taking credit for that. It's a shame that they call themselves insiders and news sources when they don't actually do their own homework, and they don't take the time or money to actually become that. If you went to Wrestling News Source, again, no offense to our friends that may or may not still work there, but if you went to Wrestling News Source homepage this week, for the last week, their featured story was the debunked rumor of TNA offering CM Punk a contract for a full week. just take that in. For a full week, they had a fake story as their featured piece. The other real shame is that sites like that, WrestleZone, PW Torch, and all the rest they're just a big pyramid scheme. You've got a ton of quality writers and contributors who are writing for free with the hopes of getting noticed. When at the end of the day, none of those writers will ever get paid. None of those writers will ever get noticed. They drive traffic to the site so that one guy at the top can fill his PayPal account and be seen as the credible source. It's a shame. This is the industry we work in. It just sickens me that you've got so many fake rumors and people are just saying it's gospel and are treated like they are insider sources when they're wrong a majority of the time.
Damn straight.
All right, fails from the live chat. We've got, after months and months of vignettes of video packages, the monster heel that is Grizzly finally debuted, and it was an absolute flop. The way WWE is now, it's why I haven't watched it for weeks. It's from the Brads. Cena rapping on WWE 2K15 soundtrack. No WWE Championship for 3 months. We've also got WWE steering the boat without a rudder. WWE still not knowing how to build new talent, and the firing of Justin Roberts. That's something we didn't talk about either, but that is an amazing story as well.
Yeah, what the fuck is that? The only explanation I can see for this is that WWE is trying to thin out its audience the same way it is its roster and its front office. Like, Willie Mack was cut the same day, and for those that aren't familiar, he's an indie wrestler with some following from PWG and other West Coast promotions, and he got cut before he even started in developmental. And that's one thing. It's a real shame, and it's a terrible mistake, I think, on their part. But that's one thing. Justin Roberts lived and breathed the WWE. That was his dream job, and people love that guy. And then you cut him. I don't understand the rationale behind that.
And he was good. He was great at his job. That's the other thing that's like crazy. But yeah, there's a lot of flack coming on social media about the firing of Justin Roberts. Again, we didn't really talk about it, but yeah, Justin Roberts was fired. No explanation other than WWE did not renew his contract. So it's a shame, but hopefully we will see him again in some capacity because the guy has talent. Yeah, and he's well liked by fans. So yeah. All right, Nick, your final thoughts.
Stay tuned to the YouTube channel. I keep saying it, and I'm probably going to keep saying it because there's still good content coming out. Apart from the show that we do and the various clips that we release, you've also got Michelle reviewing Total Divas. You've got Deuce rolling out content. Still trying to get the ball rolling on the Intro to the Indies series. That's mostly on me. I just haven't been able to find enough content in order to really justify another installment. But hopefully that'll be changing soon. And we've got more content. We're working on more stuff, trying to put pieces together. So yeah, just keep your eyes peeled on the YouTube channel. More stuff is coming.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff planned, and also obviously with the YouTube channel, I think we are fairly confident that that is where we're really starting to grow. We've got almost 800 subscribers. It seems like every video gets at least 100, 200 views. Deuce Loosely, who is a FTW community member, has been publishing some videos over there. So, I think overall it's becoming a good channel. It's a good way for us to build the audience and get more people involved. So, if you and I'm sorry, Robert Carmichael has also been doing stuff. He's been talking about when Kenta came over and Kevin Steen and being he's being able to talk from the viewpoint of being able to watch the indies and where these guys came from to know what it really means for them to be in WWE and all that sort of thing. So definitely keep your eyes on that. And if you want to get involved, we are totally into partnering with you guys and bringing the FTW community more into that side of things. So if you want to record some videos and put it out for the entire community to view and talk about and talk with you about, let's get in touch. FTWpodcast.com. There's a lot of information there as far as how to get involved with us. Yeah, so do it. I think overall this is a good way to go about it. So. And that's really my final thought as well. I don't really have anything else to say. So that's the show. You can go check out FTWpodcast.com for more information about us and how to get involved in the future. You can join us live each and every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern on FTWLive.com. For myself, Nick, everyone in the live chat, we will see you next Tuesday. See you guys.
Later, y'all.